First time here, subscribe. Because what you are about to hear is stranger than most fiction, and every word of it comes from real reports, not rumors made up for clicks. Let us slow down and build this story properly, piece by piece, because it only makes sense once you understand exactly what came before it. Earlier this year, during the war between Iran, Israel, and the United States, an Israeli airstrike killed Iran's Supreme Leader, Ali Khamenei. For nearly 4 decades, this one man had been the final word on almost everything inside Iran. War and peace, religion and law, money and diplomacy. Every major decision in the country eventually passed through him in some way. When he died, there was no long gap, no visible chaos, no extended period of public mourning shown on television. Within days, Iran's Assembly of Experts, the religious body responsible for choosing the next supreme leader, made its announcement. And the name they picked surprised many observers around the world. It was not a senior cleric with decades of religious scholarship behind him. It was not one of the older, more established figures who had spent a lifetime building influence inside the system. It was his own son, Mojtaba Khamenei. Mojtaba was reportedly injured in the very same strike that killed his father. He was quietly moved into position, and he officially took over as supreme leader in March. From that day forward, something happened that has never happened before in the entire history of the Islamic Republic. Silence. Total, complete, unbroken silence. No speech, no public photograph, no video addressed to the nation, no audio recording of any kind. Nothing. For a country that has always run heavily on the visible image of its supreme leader, standing in front of cameras during moments of crisis, addressing the public during wars, appearing at major religious and political ceremonies, this kind of silence is not just unusual, it is almost unheard of. Every single leader before him understood. World leaders who cannot agree on the basic facts. Iran's own government cannot even agree with itself. In July, Iran's foreign minister, Abbas Araghchi, appeared on Iranian state television and made an admission that shocked many people paying close attention. He said, in his own words, that he personally had not seen Mojtaba either. Sit with that for a moment. The foreign minister of the entire country, one of the most senior and most trusted officials inside the government, openly admitted on national television that he has never laid eyes on his own supreme leader. Just one single day later, President Masoud Pezeshkian stood in front of the public and said the exact opposite. He claimed his meetings with the leader had actually increased in recent months. 2 of the most senior officials in the same government. One country. 2 completely contradicting stories released within 24 hours of each other. This is not a simple translation issue. This is not a small miscommunication that got blown out of proportion. This is a government that clearly does not know what story it wants the rest of the world, or its own people, to believe. And now, thanks to a detailed new report from Iran International, we finally have real specifics about what one of these meetings actually looked like from the inside. And once you hear the full details, you will understand exactly why so many people, including Iranian citizens themselves, are seriously asking whether Mojtaba Khamenei is truly the one running the country at all, or whether he is simply a name being used by people operating far away from public view. If you are already finding this hard to believe, imagine how it felt for the people who first read this report coming out of Tehran. According to multiple sources connected to this story, President Pezeshkian had been pushing hard, for weeks, if not longer, to secure a private, direct meeting with Mojtaba. Reports suggest he even threatened to resign just to force that meeting into existence. Eventually, after enough pressure, the Supreme Leader's office agreed, but there was an unusual condition attached. Pezeshkian was told clearly that he would not be received at the leader's usual official residence, the traditional location where past Supreme Leaders had always welcomed important guests, including presidents. Instead, his own presidential security detail drove him to an undisclosed location somewhere inside Tehran. Once he arrived, he was taken out of his official vehicle, the car with his own trusted staff and his own security team, and placed into the back seat of a completely different vehicle. This was described as an ordinary commercial car, but with windows so heavily tinted that almost no outside light could pass through the glass. Mojtaba was reportedly already sitting inside, waiting for him in near total darkness. The 2 men were never allowed to see each other's faces during this entire meeting. Guards reportedly did not permit any handshake between them. The entire conversation happened purely through voice. 2 men sitting side by side in a dark, unmarked car. One of them supposedly the most powerful religious and political figure in the entire nation, and neither one able to visually confirm that the other person was who they claimed to be. According to the report, the meeting lasted only a few minutes. Then, Pezeshkian was told, quite simply, that it was time for him to leave. Now compare that account to what Pezeshkian himself told the Iranian public back in May. At a public gathering with representatives from trade unions, he described his meeting with Mojtaba very differently. He said the conversation had lasted 2.5 hours. He described the atmosphere using warm, generous language, sincere, humble, full of trust and mutual respect. 2.5 hours filled with warmth, humility, and trust, or a few tense, silent minutes hidden away inside a blacked-out car with no handshake and no visible face allowed. These two descriptions cannot both be accurate representations of the same relationship. Somewhere between these two versions, something important is being left out, softened, or reshaped for public consumption. And here comes the detail that should genuinely stop you in your tracks. Sources close to the president reportedly say that after leaving this meeting, Pezeshkian returned to his own office and turned to his closest staff members with a serious question. He asked them whether the voice he had just heard truly belonged to Mojtaba Khamenei. Read that sentence again slowly. The sitting president of Iran was not fully certain that he had just spoken to his own supreme leader. If you are finding this story as difficult to process as I did when I first came across it, do me a favor right now. Drop a single word in the comments below, real or fake. I genuinely want to see what this community believes is actually happening inside Iran's leadership at this very moment, because the more I dig into this, the stranger it becomes. Now, let us talk about why this meeting was structured this way in the first place, because the official explanation given by Iranian state media is arguably even stranger than the meeting itself. A state-aligned outlet inside Iran, Hamshahri, attempted to defend all this secrecy with a theory of their own. Their argument was that if Mojtaba Khamenei ever released a public audio recording of his voice, foreign intelligence agencies could study that recording in incredible detail. According to this theory, spies could analyze subtle background noise picked up in the recording, cross-reference that noise with the specific electrical frequency patterns of local power grids across different regions, and use that information to pinpoint his exact physical location. They even went further, claiming that intelligence analysts could study the tension present in his vocal cords, listening carefully for signs of physical injury, exhaustion, or psychological anxiety hidden inside the sound of his own voice. Stop and really consider what this means. This is not some outside opposition media outlet accusing the regime of covering something up. This is state-aligned media, operating inside Iran itself, essentially confirming that their own leader cannot speak publicly, because doing so might reveal too much about his true physical condition. In trying to defend the silence, they accidentally built the very justification that makes the silence look suspicious in the first place. They are, in effect, publicly explaining why their own supreme leader must remain hidden from the people he is supposed to lead. Meanwhile, inside President Pezeshkian's own political circle, tension appears to have been quietly building for months, long before this particular report ever surfaced. A cleric named Mohammad Bagher Karazi, who is connected to the Khamenei family through marriage, made a public claim that stunned many people watching closely. He stated that Pezeshkian has attempted to resign not once, not twice, but a staggering 28 separate times. 28 resignation attempts. According to Karazi, Mojtaba's office eventually delivered a clear final warning through intermediaries. The next resignation attempt would be accepted immediately. No more threats, no more leverage, no more using resignation as a bargaining chip to force meetings or extract concessions. The Supreme Leader's office has since publicly denied this specific claim, calling it entirely false. But here is something important to notice. Even that denial does nothing to explain the strange, secretive nature of the tinted car meeting. Even that denial does not explain why the foreign minister openly admitted he's never seen Mojtaba in person. Even that denial does not explain 5 long months of complete public silence from a man who is officially the spiritual and political head of an entire nation of more than 80 million people. If you're enjoying this deep breakdown of what is really happening inside Iran, take 2 seconds right now and smash that subscribe button. This channel exists specifically to cut through the noise, the propaganda, and the confusion coming out of Tehran, and to give you the real picture, piece by piece, without unnecessary spin in either direction. More stories exactly like this one are coming very soon, and you genuinely do not want to miss them. Let us zoom out for a moment now, because this is not simply a strange, isolated story about a car with tinted windows. This is a much bigger story about power itself, and about what happens when the people sitting at the very top of a government slowly begin to lose control over their own public narrative. Think carefully about what a supreme leader is actually meant to represent inside Iran's political and religious system. He is not treated as just another political figure among many. He is presented to the public as a religious authority, as a moral compass for the entire nation, as a man whose voice is supposed to carry real weight precisely because people can hear his conviction directly, see his face during moments of national crisis, and feel a genuine sense that someone experienced and trustworthy is actually steering the country through difficult times. That entire image only works properly if the leader remains visible and accessible. The moment he disappears almost completely from public life, the whole carefully built structure around him begins to wobble, slowly but noticeably. Now put yourself in the position of an ordinary citizen living inside Iran right now, going about daily life under enormous economic pressure and lingering fears of renewed conflict. You are told through official channels that your supreme leader is alive and actively guiding the country forward. Yet you have personally never heard his voice, not even once. Your own elected president apparently cannot confirm with full certainty whether the man he sat beside in a dark car was truly him. Your foreign minister has openly admitted he has never even seen him in person. What exactly are you supposed to believe under these circumstances? What foundation of trust is left for you to stand on? This is precisely why a particular phrase has started spreading among people watching this situation unfold, both inside and outside Iran. People have begun calling Mojtaba Khamenei a ghost, a leader who technically holds the highest title in the land, but who exists almost entirely as a rumor, a name attached to statements, a shadow behind carefully worded denials, unseen by his own senior officials, unheard by his own citizens, represented only through claims made by unnamed sources, through formal denials, issued by unnamed spokespeople, and through accusations made by relatives whose motives may not always be entirely clear. There is something genuinely unsettling about an entire nation being run this particular way. Important decisions are still being made somewhere behind closed doors. Foreign policy is still actively moving forward despite all this uncertainty. Iran has reportedly continued sensitive discussions with Washington under President Pezeshkian, who has been notably careful to frame those specific talks as a decision made collectively by Iran's broader Security Council, rather than something he personally initiated or pushed forward on his own. That particular framing matters more than it might seem at first glance. It suggests that Pezeshkian himself may be actively trying to protect his own political position, fully aware that any independent move he makes could easily be portrayed as him overstepping the authority of a leader that nobody around him can even fully verify is actively guiding those decisions in the first place. And this is exactly where the real, lasting danger lies for Iran's current leadership structure. It is not simply that ordinary people doubt Mojtaba's physical condition. It is that this doubt itself acts like a slow acid, quietly eating away at trust throughout every level of government. Once a country's own foreign minister publicly admits uncertainty on national television, once a country's own president privately questions whether he truly spoke to his real leader, that same uncertainty naturally begins spreading outward. It spreads to military commanders who genuinely need clear, verified orders during sensitive moments. It spreads to regional allies who need real clarity on who actually holds functioning authority inside Tehran. It spreads to ordinary citizens who are already watching their economy struggle under pressure while simultaneously watching their own government contradict itself publicly within the very same week. Some analysts studying this situation closely believe the secrecy surrounding Mojtaba has far less to do with genuinely protecting him from foreign intelligence agencies, and far more to do with protecting the public image of a leader who may actually be in significantly worse physical condition than the government is currently willing to admit. If Mojtaba truly was seriously injured in the same strike that killed his father, a strike powerful enough to kill one of the most heavily protected men in the entire country, then it is entirely plausible that his recovery process has been slow, difficult, or still incomplete, even now. A leader who struggles to speak clearly, who cannot physically manage long public appearances, who cannot convincingly project the strength and stability that his position demands, is exactly the kind of leader whose closest handlers might deliberately choose prolonged silence over any form of public exposure. But there is another theory circulating as well, and in many ways it is even more unsettling than the first one. Some believe this secrecy has very little to do with Mojtaba's actual health at all. Instead, it may be primarily about control. If only a very small, tightly controlled circle of people can genuinely confirm what Mojtaba actually says, thinks, or wants at any given moment, then whoever controls access to him effectively controls the entire direction of the country itself. Official statements can be quietly released in his name. Major decisions can be conveniently attributed to him after the fact. Public denials can be issued on his behalf whenever needed. And because almost nobody outside that small inner circle can independently verify any of it, that inner circle ends up holding enormous, almost completely unchecked power over the nation. If this particular theory turns out to be true, then the strange tinted car meeting was likely never really about protecting Mojtaba from foreign spies at all. It may instead have been carefully designed to ensure that even the president of the country remains uncertain, remains dependent, remains unable to meaningfully challenge decisions made in Mojtaba's name, simply because he cannot say with full confidence what Mojtaba actually said to him directly. Either way you choose to look at this unfolding situation, the overall picture that emerges is not one of a confident, stable, well-organized government. It is instead the picture of a leadership structure actively scrambling to maintain the outward appearance of control, while the real foundation underneath it grows measurably shakier with each passing week. Now let us take a moment to talk about Pezeshkian himself, because his personal position throughout all of this is genuinely difficult to envy, no matter which political side you happen to favor. He is officially the elected face of the Iranian government, the man that foreign leaders and international media naturally look toward whenever they want a formal Iranian response on any given issue. And yet, according to these detailed reports, he has apparently been reduced to negotiating for mere scraps of access to his own country's Supreme Leader, threatening resignation nearly 30 separate times just to secure a few brief minutes inside a dark, unmarked car, publicly praising a supposed 2.5-hour meeting that, according to insider sources close to his own office, may never have actually matched the warm, trusting description he chose to give the public. Why would a sitting president knowingly exaggerate the warmth of a meeting that reportedly left him feeling humiliated behind closed doors? The most reasonable explanation is simple survival. In a political system where public loyalty to the supreme leader is treated as functionally equivalent to loyalty to the state itself, openly admitting doubt about Mojtaba's legitimacy, or openly admitting that their working relationship is cold, distant, and distrustful, could easily be interpreted as a direct threat against the wider regime. Pezeshkian may have made a very deliberate, calculated choice here. Present a unified, confident image to the general public, even if the private reality behind closed doors looks completely different from that carefully managed image. But a strategy like that only continues working as long as the cracks stay hidden from public view. And it is becoming increasingly clear, week after week, that these cracks are no longer staying hidden. Between the foreign minister's blunt public admission, the detailed resignation claims from a family insider, and now this specific detailed account of the tinted car meeting itself, the gap between the official public story and the private internal reality is widening in plain sight for anyone paying close attention to notice. If this kind of deep, careful analysis is exactly what you come to this channel for, make absolutely sure you are subscribed with notifications turned on, because this entire situation inside Iran is moving quickly, and we are committed to tracking every meaningful new development the moment it happens. Let us also carefully consider the international angle behind all of this, because this story extends well beyond Iran's own internal politics. It carries real, tangible consequences for how the rest of the world chooses to deal with Iran going forward. Effective diplomacy depends heavily on knowing with confidence exactly who you are actually negotiating with. If foreign governments genuinely cannot be certain whether Mojtaba Khamenei is alive, whether he is healthy enough to lead effectively, or even whether he is truly the one making key decisions at all, then every single agreement, every ongoing negotiation, every public promise made by Iranian officials carries an additional troubling layer of uncertainty attached to it. Washington cannot be fully confident that any commitments made through Pezeshkian's government genuinely reflect the true will of the actual supreme leader, simply because nobody, including Pezeshkian himself according to these reports, can say with full certainty what the true will actually is. This same uncertainty also directly changes the strategic calculations of Iran's regional rivals and regional allies alike. Israel has to seriously consider whether the man they may have originally targeted in that initial strike is still alive today, still fully capable of directing Iran's military posture and nuclear ambitions, or whether real functional power has already quietly shifted toward people operating carefully behind the scenes. Gulf nations closely watching Iran's ongoing internal confusion have to decide whether to continue treating Tehran as a stable, predictable government worth serious long-term engagement, or whether to treat it instead as a regime currently caught in the middle of a quiet, unresolved succession crisis that could potentially break open into full public view at almost any moment. And there is a deeper, almost ironic historical layer sitting underneath this entire situation. Iran's political system was originally built specifically to avoid exactly this kind of prolonged uncertainty. The entire underlying concept of a supreme leader was carefully designed to create one clear, unquestionable center of ultimate authority, someone positioned above the elected government, someone whose final word could reliably settle any major internal dispute without lingering doubt. The entire system was built around the promise of stability through absolute, unquestioned clarity at the very top. Instead, 5 full months into Mojtaba Khamenei's official leadership, Iran finds itself sitting in almost the exact opposite situation from what that system was designed to. Guarantee, nobody appears genuinely certain anymore. Not the general public, not the country's own foreign minister, not, according to these detailed reports, even the sitting president himself. Let us bring this story back down to its human core for a moment, because it becomes very easy to get lost inside politics, strategy, and analysis, and forget that there is a real, breathing person sitting at the very center of all this. Picture President Pezeshkian actually walking toward that unmarked location on the day of this meeting. Picture him physically stepping out of his own official car, a vehicle surrounded by his own trusted security team and his own familiar staff, and being quietly led instead into a completely different, unfamiliar vehicle, with windows tinted so darkly he could barely make out his own hand in front of his face, let alone clearly see the face of the man now sitting directly beside him. Picture the heavy, uncomfortable silence, hanging inside that car in the moments just before a voice finally speaks. Picture him sitting there, listening intently, carefully, trying to recognize a familiar tone, a familiar rhythm of speech, anything at all that might genuinely confirm this truly was the leader he has publicly claimed to serve under. And then picture him walking back into his own office only minutes later, turning toward people he personally trusts, and asking the one question that clearly mattered most to him in that exact moment. Was that really him? That is simply not the behavior of a confident, secure head of state calmly meeting his own spiritual and political leader. That is, instead, the behavior of a man who genuinely no longer feels certain about even the most basic underlying facts of the very system he is officially supposed to help run on a daily basis. This particular part of the story tends to stick with people long after they first hear it. And honestly, it probably should. Because if the sitting president of an entire nation cannot personally verify exactly who he is speaking to at the very top of his own government's chain of command, then every single ordinary citizen positioned underneath him is effectively living inside a much larger chain of command built almost entirely on unverified trust. Orders quietly passed down from a man that almost nobody outside a tiny circle has actually seen in person. Official statements released publicly in his name that nobody beyond the same small circle can genuinely confirm he actually spoke or approved himself. An entire national government continuing to function purely on the widespread assumption that the ghost sitting at the very top is still somehow steering the ship, when in cold reality, nobody standing outside that one locked tinted car truly knows for certain. Before we move toward the final part of this story, let us pause here together for just a moment. If you have genuinely made it this far into the video, you clearly care about understanding what is really happening inside Iran right now, well beyond the simple surface level headlines most people scroll past. So please do me one small favor. Share this specific video with someone you know who has been loosely following the broader Iran situation, but who may have completely missed this particular detailed report. Stories exactly like this one genuinely deserve to reach more people, and you personally sharing it is what actually makes that happen. So, after everything we have covered, where does this entire situation truly leave us right now? Iran currently has a supreme leader that almost nobody outside a small circle has actually seen in nearly 5 full months. A sitting president who reportedly cannot fully confirm he has ever genuinely spoken face-to-face with that same leader. A foreign minister who has publicly admitted he personally has not seen him either. State-aligned media openly constructing elaborate justifications for why this ongoing silence must continue indefinitely. And senior political insiders making detailed claims about repeated resignation attempts and private warnings that the leader's own office is then forced to publicly deny over and over again. In most functioning countries around the world, a situation like this would be treated as an urgent open governance crisis, something demanding immediate public answers, formal press conferences, and clearly verified public appearances. Inside Iran, this same situation is instead being carefully managed in the complete opposite direction. Quietly, cautiously, behind heavily tinted windows and through carefully worded statements attributed to unnamed sources. But history has consistently shown us time and time again that secrets of this particular size rarely stay buried forever. Eventually, something inevitably breaks through the silence. A photograph that simply cannot be denied or explained away. A recording that somehow leaks out despite every careful precaution taken to prevent it. A resignation that finally sticks for good, instead of quietly being walked back under private pressure. A political rival who eventually gains enough power and support to demand real, verifiable answers instead of accepting yet another vague, carefully worded statement. Until that particular moment eventually arrives, Mojtaba Khamenei remains exactly what a growing number of people, both inside Iran and around the world, have already started calling him. A ghost sitting at the very top of an entire nation, ruling quietly from the shadows, unseen even by the very president who is officially supposed to answer directly to him. And that reality raises a question genuinely worth sitting with long after this particular video ends. If the most powerful man inside an entire country cannot even prove to his own government that he truly exists in the way they claim, does he actually hold real power at all? Or has that real power already quietly shifted toward whoever it is that controls the deep silence surrounding him? That is the real, unfolding story currently taking place inside Iran right now, And based on everything we have seen so far, it is very clearly far from over. If this video genuinely helped you understand what is really happening behind Iran's ongoing leadership crisis, let me know your honest takedown in the comments section below. Do you personally believe Mojtaba Khamenei is truly alive and genuinely in control right now? Or do you believe this entire situation is quietly being managed by people hiding carefully behind his name and his authority? I read through every single comment left on this channel, and I genuinely want to hear exactly what you think about all of this. Thank you sincerely for watching this entire video all the way through to the end. Stay subscribed because this particular story is still actively developing in real time, and the moment the next piece of this puzzle finally surfaces, you will hear about it right here first.